Hey there, guys. Darlene here, and I want to greatly apologize for taking so long to put up something new on this channel. As they say, life be lifing, and all is well, but had to really deal with some other important things. And when I get the time to, um, record some content for you guys, I want to make sure that I am in a good place. And I am. So I'm back. I'm good. I'm ready. Here we go. Hopefully, you checked out chapter one. In this next chapter, this is the one that is about my mother. So I want to give, as they say nowadays, a warning, I guess, in case there's some people that are bothered by either, well, I have to give that warning of language because I'm gonna repeat and reiterate like language that Rose would use. My mom, that's her name. So that, but mostly because of what kind of person she was and how she treated her kids, myself, of course, included, the youngest. But it's bothersome to a lot of people. And I get it because, and thank God that not a lot of people will ever have that kind of experience, especially with somebody who was supposed to love you and protect you like your mother. So, with that being said, just a warning that what you're going to hear was part of my childhood. I have dealt with it, but just FYI, about to put my reading glasses on. Just FYI, and again, another reminder, I am a huge, huge crier. Big baby. I cry again. Happy, sad, whatever, somber things. But when certain memories hit me, I may shed a tear or two, just letting you know. So those that are bothered by women crying, what have you, I'm going to do my best to try not to, but I'm not going to hold back also if it hits me. So here we are. Thank you for coming back. Um, and again, I am reading from the actual original copy of my book, Definition of Down, My Life with Ice-T and the Birth of Hip Hop. So go back to chapter one so I can explain to you what that was all about. All right, so here we go. Chapter two. I'm going to put these on, and I was trying to keep my glasses off for as long as I could because of the glare. But here we go. All right, let's see. It's not too bad. And again, you might hear some motorcycles or dogs barking or people yelling or whatever. I don't know. I'm not in some fancy studio. I'm in my room. All right, so here we go. Chapter two, Rose. So let's start with the good memories of Rose. She made a terrific pineapple upside down cake. I know. I had it more than once. And one time, when I had a prom date pick me up, she actually didn't ruin it. She even took a couple of pictures of us and was polite. That's very rare. She might have even been wearing a bra. Now, that is like an inside joke I threw in there because of how my mom used to present herself. She would dress pretty unique, and that's being somewhat nice. Anyway, now she'd walk around with like t-shirts. She was kind of known for this see-through type t-shirts with no bra, and she was pretty big upstairs. So, anywho, but she was a mess. So I threw that joke in here in the book actually and said she might have even been wearing a bra that day. Anyway, continuing on. But that's where the good times end. Rose was bad to the bone. She was diabolical. She had 4 daughters by 3 different men, and only my father tried to step up and make an honest woman out of her. I used to look at this one photo of her, and I could see that she'd once been a beautiful woman. She had perfect skin and that classic model beauty mark made famous by Marilyn Monroe. Like that. The little black beauty mark right there. And my mom had a big one right there. It was pretty where it was placed and everything. That once classic model beauty mark made famous by Marilyn Monroe, although my mom's was real. She was in that picture, she was wearing a one-piece bathing suit and she looked like a Latina Betty Page. You have to look that one up. She had a full busty figure and black pinup hair. She had confidence and strength in that faded Polaroid. I used to stare at that photo and wonder, what happened to you, Rose? What made you so mean? She never talked about her childhood, but I knew that she was the oldest of 11 kids, and by 15, almost 16, she was a parent of her own. And nobody ever talked about that. It was a game of survival in Rosie's home. We lived in a two-bedroom apartment on a quiet street in Corona, California, in Riverside County. I can still hear her snapping her gum, making disparaging remarks while nursing her Boone's Farm wine. The refrigerator would be empty most of the times, but there was always plenty of alcohol. Till this day, I still don't know how I even made it to school each morning or how I got myself ready. There was no one to wake you up, no one to make you breakfast or pack you a lunch or see you off to school with clean clothes and a smile. But each day, I'd somehow do it on my own, and often in time to get to my grandma's house first. A couple of things I can credit Rose to. She was crazy about posture. She'd smack the shit out of us from behind with such a force just so we'd stand up straight. And we did. And till this day, I have excellent posture, so I must say, thanks, Rose. And her other obsession was that she was adamant that none of us came home pregnant, not because of any concern of our well being, but because she made it clear, and this is straight from Rosie's mouth, I ain't taking care of no fucking kids. She didn't want us, and she surely didn't want any grandchildren. My friends used to joke about how I could go anywhere and do anything I wanted, all because Rose didn't care where I went. My friends would literally come over just to witness Rosie's response whenever I'd ask her for her permission if I can go out. You would hear a voice from upstairs yelling down, are you kidding me? You're waking me up for this shit? Hell's bells. Go ahead and shut that motherfucker down for all I care. And those became some legendary Rose phrases. And just in case you're not unaware of what that means, hell's bells, of course, she just throw that out there. It's an old saying. You have to look it up. But when she meant by shut that motherfucker down, we would all laugh, of course, but inside, of course, I was hurting. Like, damn, my mom doesn't even care where I go, what time I come back, am I safe? None of that. So when she'd say shut that motherfucker down, that meant just go ahead and stop bothering me and stay till it's over or it ends, whatever. She didn't care. So that was something she'd throw out all the time. Those were some of the legendary Rose phrases my friends and I would use through the years, and still to this day, we kind of joke and make fun of them and stuff. Everyone thought I was just so lucky because Rose was so lenient, but I actually wanted a mother like they had. A mother who'd say, where are you going? Who are you going with? What time does it end? Or, I want you home by midnight. Looking back, I realized just how notorious Rose was. I was present for her first DUI. I was around 12 years old, and Rose was driving me and my sister home from a visit at my father's house. It was so cold and rainy, so when I was rushing out as we were leaving, I grabbed my dad's army coat. My sister immediately started arguing with Rose once we got in the car, all because she was driving erratically. My sister called her out. You're drunk, she said, and Rose, of course being drunk, slurred back. Ah, mind your business. As we swerved along a two-lane highway, and then boom, suddenly we found ourselves off of the side of the road down a deep embankment and smack against a dirt wall. Rose had lost total control of the vehicle. My sister slammed her head against the windshield and had blood just dripping down the front of her face, right from her forehead. But that didn't stop her from cursing my mom out. My sister snatched me out of the car and we went running up the highway. But we quickly realized we were in the middle of nowhere on a cold and stormy night. This was pre-cell phone, and we had no choice but to go back and wait in the car and wait it out. Rose was semi-conscious, moaning incoherently. It took about an hour before my sister was able to flag down a car on the road And the driver said that they'd go ahead and contact the police for us. Of course, this is before cell phone days, so you couldn't just say, hey, let me use your cell phone, or we had a phone to call. So it took us a while before we had a car coming down that road. It was very late, like, middle of the morning, like 3, 4 in the morning. So he said that he would contact the police for us. So as soon as they showed up, the police, my sister demanded that they arrest Rose. She told them that she was drunk and had endangered our lives, and they went to the car to get my mom out. She came to life when they put the cuffs on her, and she started screaming, "You better not touch my daughters." What? There she was, trying to sound like a responsible mom, but it was so ass backwards because she was the one who damn near killed us. What I didn't know, though, while I was sitting and waiting at the police station for my dad to come get us, was that the jacket I had on was loaded with his weed stash. As I sat there surrounded by officers in a police station, I finally got the gravity of our situation. I began to smell a familiar smell. My daddy. I was like, what is that? Right? Seriously, we're sitting there right in the middle of a police station waiting. So I was like, what is that smell? Mind you, this is in the early 80s, guys. So that's crazy. Like, it wasn't legal. I never smoked weed because my dad was adamant that his baby girl would stay away from all drugs, but I sure knew that smell. Then I started to look in the pockets, and sure enough, in his top pocket, right there, that's why I could smell, was loaded with a bag of skunk weed, and that was strong. Whew. I nudged my sister and pointed to the pocket as she came closer to sniff herself, and her eyes got big, and she said, "Oh shit." So there I was. My mother's in jail. I'm sitting in the lobby, and I'm in possession. My father came running into the police station, quickly thanking the cops, and then he rushed us the hell up out of there. As soon as we all got to the car, we all immediately started laughing, and my dad and I traded jackets. It was all so crazy that we couldn't help but laugh. My sister was finally vindicated because Rose was where she needed to be, locked up. But unfortunately, they let her out. Every day was drama with Rose. She just never let up. I look back now and I can appreciate the macabre humor. And I see how I was actually in training to be the perfect gangsta wife. Nothing shocked me. So, again, these numbers were from 2015 when I wrote the book. So, unfortunately, I think they're probably higher by now. Um, So, according to the National Children's Alliance, nearly 700,000 children are abused or neglected annually, and more than 3 million children received preventative services from Child Protective Services back in 2015. But now, back in the 70s, when I was coming up, turning a blind eye to abused children was pretty commonplace, even within families. I look back now and I wonder, where was Rose's family in all this? All those brothers and sisters, they knew what was up. They knew who she was, but no one intervened. Rose could turn on the charms whenever officers showed up at our door, and that was quite frequently. She had an amazing green thumb, and our patio always looked so lush and well tended to. Whenever officers showed up, she could always play it off because our home was always clean. Nothing was ever out of place, and the cops would just shrug their shoulders and walk away. And when you've been repeatedly let down year after year by the authorities that are supposed to protect you, you might just decide to take matters into your own hands. I felt it was the only way I could save myself. I had taken her pinching, shoving, squeezing, and verbal abuse year after year. Even as a little girl, I thought to myself, that's just Rose. What can I do? It's just the way things were. One of my sisters fought back all the time, and she did her best to protect me and our other sisters, but I just took it in stride until the day she went too far. I was around 13 and there were no other sisters left in the house. I was the only one there with her. Rose occasionally disappeared for days at a time, and I took the opportunity to have a male friend over. We were watching TV when suddenly I heard Rose coming up through the patio gate. She never let me know where she was going or when she was coming back home. I just knew she had been gone for days. So, I was like, okay, I'd either have like a little party over with friends or what have you. But in this case, I had this young guy over. And she never wanted anyone in the house. So I told my friend, oh my God, hurry up and hide. Do not make a sound. I got up to meet Rose at the door, and she was clearly on a bender, super stinking drunk. And we've already established that Rose was a mean drunk. She was going off about my dad, telling me how she'd gone to his house and that he'd asked her to leave. She would always do that, like pop up over his house and try to spy on him and everything, even though they'd been separated for years. She was one of those. So she was yelling at me about my dad, saying how he told her to leave his place. She turned her anger on me, and with fire in her eyes, she raged. And you look just like him. And like Frankenstein with her arms stretched out, she took her clawed hands and came right at me and wrapped those hands around my throat. I was trying to grasp for air. I remember the coldness. I just hit the ground. I was wondering, what was my friend doing? And what was he thinking? He was hiding somewhere, all while this scene was playing itself out. As she was choking me, she was telling me that I'll never see my family again. That's my dad's side. And that I will never see my dad, that she was going to take me away from all of my friends. Where am I at? Oh, so she said, yeah, you'll never see your father again, and that she's going to move me away. And I'm literally terrified, not only for my life, but for what my life will be if I do live. And then she heard a noise. She jumped up, releasing her hands off of my throat, and she went and found my friend cowering in the living room behind a wicker wall hanging that had fell down. As soon as he saw her coming toward him, he made like a bat out of hell, my hell, leaving me alone to deal with my mother. Without skipping a beat, Rose came back toward me, her rage and threats continuing as she made her way to her room now as getting tired to pass out. With whelps visible on my neck and a growing pain each time I swallowed, I went to my room and started to really think about what she was saying and what she had just done. Yes, she could have killed me that day. That much was clear. I knew my friend, despite his cowardice, had just saved my life by just being present. But I knew in my heart that Rose meant what she said, and she was going to ruin the rest of my life. So I made up my mind. That was the last time she was ever going to put her hands on me. I was going to show her. So I waited in my room for hours just trying to come up with a plan. I was so desperate. I thought of never seeing my father and my grandparents again. That was more than I could bear. Rose wasn't one to make idle threats. She really followed through. When she threatened you, she'd follow through all right. So finally, a plan started to formulate. I was going to make it look like an accident. Rose was always falling asleep with a cigarette in her hand, and I figured it was only a matter of time before she lit her bed on fire. I was simply going to expedite the process. It took hours for me to creep slowly over to her room. I'd take a step, and then I'd wait, and then another, and then I'd wait. I brought a baseball bat for protection in case she woke up. Excuse me. Finally, I had summoned the courage to enter her room. There she was, passed out drunk, with ashtray overflowing next to her bed. I stood there for the longest time, looking at her with disgust as sweat was rolling down my face. It was nearly dawn now at this point when I finally took her lighter off her nightstand. I reached under her bed, flicked the flame, and waved it under the mattress, holding it until I could smell smoke. I started to go into shock because I realized I actually did it. So I'm standing there at that point. I'm like, "S- I- damn, it's already burning." Ah, I just was realizing, what am I doing? Rose began to moan, waking up and coming to. I had the baseball bat, and as I lifted it up to swing it, I just froze. And I realized what I was doing was wrong, and it would likely ruin the rest of my life. The bat just simply went down. My arm went limp, and it collided with her head. Not a crack or a thunk, but just enough to draw blood and wake her up completely. She shot up in her bed, holding her head, looking at me with horror, a horror I'd never seen. It was probably a look that she'd seen on my face plenty of times as she was, hitting me, but I'd never seen it on hers. As much as I hated Rose, I knew I couldn't go through with it, and I had to help her. She actually looked pathetic in that moment. "Your bed's on fire!" I screamed. And quickly we both grabbed the mattress and pulled it off to the floor, and then we took the burning box spring and tossed it out of the balcony window onto the patio below, where it continued to burn. A neighbor quickly called the fire department, and they showed up. And so did the fire chief, who just happened to be my very best friend's father. He knew there were problems in my home, and he took one look around and he asked my mom to explain what happened. While the paramedics were cleaning up her forehead, she was looking directly at me, and I was looking directly back at her. My eyes had told her, "You're never going to hurt me again." I didn't know how long I was going to go away, but I made it clear to her in that look that no matter what it took, she wasn't going to ever lay a hand on me. Not ever again. And that's when Rose took the fall. This was such a shock. She started to tell a story about how she fell asleep and her bed caught on fire from the cigarette. How she got up and started to run down the stairs, and then that she tripped and fell and hit her head on a corner of a cabinet. The fire chief just looked at me, looked back at her, and he knew she was lying. I knew he knew. And suddenly, everything changed in that very moment. So I ended up looking at Rose, and I opened my mouth and said, "I'm going to my grandma's." Of course, which never before I would talk to her or challenge her like that. And I just said, "I'm going to go to my grandma's." My dad's mom, of course. She didn't respond at all, not a word. And I walked out the door. I looked back at her and I could see a sadness in her. She knew she had been defeated. She would no longer be able to control me with her fist and or with fear. And from that moment on, Rose never laid a hand on me again. Now that doesn't mean that the verbal abuse stopped, but yeah, at least the physical. Um, there you go. Chapter 2, Rose. Uh, I'll make this picture a lot clearer, but just really quick. Show it. So that's a picture of the two of us at my quinceañera. And I look miserable, of course. She looks angry. Um, and I would have never even invited her. I mean, that's how our relationship was. But my dad's family, who was just the best, it was because of them that I even had a quinceañera, that they saved up and their money and threw for me. Um, and of course, when it came down to, there goes a dog barking. And of course, when it came down to um, inviting people, they said, "You got to invite Rose. You got to invite your mom, darling. It's your mom. Come on." And of course, I was just super sad. I was like, "No, I don't want her there." And you can read it all over that picture, but it was okay. We ended up letting her come. And thank goodness she just didn't even stay long, because she was that kind of woman where she'd just be disgusted that there's my dad, even though they weren't together for, I mean, at that point, I'm like, what, 15, 16 years old at my party. And she's upset that my dad is having a good time. I mean, this is the kind of crazy women that, ugh, I just despise. That, look, you guys have moved on. You're no longer together. And so thank goodness, with all that being said, that she just couldn't even take it. So she, seeing that, like, everybody have a good time. So she left shortly after we took that picture. So she was only there for a few hours. Um so that's the pretty much the gist of, you know, my mom and that particular situation. Um, so if you have a decent uh parents or parent, thank God. Um, that's wonderful. That's great. Some of us that didn't, it's then that we made it out okay. That's fine. You know, I had a great dad. Thank God. Excellent dad. And again, the story continues. So that's chapter 2, guys. Woo, I hope you were able to hear me okay. And again, I am going to dedicate so much more to this channel. And I appreciate it. And as you can see, I am not in a fancy studio. I am in my room. Um Glad you can join me. Can't wait to share more. Stay safe. Be good to each other.